Well, Happy New Year and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to kick off the new year right. So let's talk about how to recognize when a friendship has quietly expired. This is a new year. We're looking at friendship in a new way. So number one, why it feels so confusing when this happens to us. Number two, what are the signs that it is in fact happening to us? And three, most importantly, what it doesn't mean. You know, how do we move on from these kind of relationships without blame, without drama, without feeling overwhelmed by guilt or failure or even anger? So let's face it, most friendships don't end with a fight. Well, maybe they did when we were 13 and 14, but not anymore. They tend to end with a feeling that often grows slowly over time. We kind of know that something is wrong. You know, if you picture a timeline of any of your friendships, they go along at a nice steady pace, a couple of peaks, very few valleys. The peaks are the good times, the valleys, those little disappointments, little aggravations, but we get over them. So however you define friendship, as you look at this timeline and you look back to when the friendship began, you realize that over time it started to flip. The valleys start to happen a little more often. And usually what you notice is that they stick with you a little, they almost sting. And eventually they become more normal than rare. There are always telltale signs, right? Whenever anything is changing, when you look back and do a little self-reflection, you realize that you found yourself pausing before you replied to a text. You got a sense of relief when plans fell through, or when you texted them and they didn't reply to you right away. There's a quiet awareness that, you know, something is a little bit off, even if there's nothing really wrong, like one thing or two things you can point to. And I think for women, especially talking about friendship, as we do on this channel, women over 50 or what we call midlife friendship, you know, it's a double-edged sword because often there's a long time investment. You know, maybe you've known this woman since your kids were little. Maybe your kids played together. You know, maybe this person was a close neighbor for decades. The longer you've known someone, the more confusing it can be when you start to become aware that things have changed. And you ask yourself, wait, when did this happen? How come I didn't notice? How did I get here? Well, if you're like me, we often tell ourselves that it's us, right? I always say, oh, it's just me. I don't feel good today, or I've got other things on my mind. I'm being too sensitive. I'm being ungrateful. I'm being dramatic. I'm just imagining things. Or maybe I am the one who's changing and nothing has changed with them. So you really start to doubt yourself. But often what we're really doing is ignoring our own wisdom. And ladies and men, we are very wise, right? We have done a lot of living. We've had a lot of good experiences and some bad experiences, more than we care to count. We forget to listen to ourselves. So how do we recognize when we're in a friendship that has quietly expired? Without that blame, without going through guilt, without getting angry, and without letting it really get to you, really upset you. Because outgrowing a friendship, it doesn't mean it didn't matter. Quite the opposite. It means that it did. You're losing something you cared about at one time in your life. So let's hit on those three key points. Why it feels so confusing. What are some of the signs that it is happening to you, to your friendship? And finally, what it doesn't mean. So number one, why it feels so confusing. Well, for many of us, as I said, especially in our midlife, this kind of friendship shift is hard to name, because when you know someone a long time and you start to grow apart, it's very weird, because we've been trained as little girls that friendships end loudly, right? Conflict, betrayal, a clear reason, that dreaded word breakup that always seems to come with heartache. I mean, that's what we learned when we were little girls. She betrayed me. She lied to me. She hurt my feelings. But at our age, most of the time, that's not what happens. Instead, there are subtle changes over an extended period of time. And for the most part, we don't notice them until it becomes too much. But what we do realize is that the rhythm is off. Conversations start to feel very surface. You stop feeling understood, like, boy, I told her that story and she just didn't seem to get it, or she didn't seem to understand why it happened or how I was feeling. Or maybe it's her feeling that she's not connecting with you. Even though you're both being polite, you just feel like on some level you're not connecting, and it's a way you did connect in the past. And honestly, because nothing bad happened, we consistently talk ourselves out of feeling what we're feeling. And we tell ourselves, like I said, I always tell myself, oh, I'm being dramatic, or I'm being ungrateful, or too sensitive. We rationalize our feelings away because we don't trust our gut. How many times does that happen? And it's so important to listen to not just your mind, but also your body. We talked last week about 2 weeks ago about vampire friends that just suck the life out of you, and you get in the car and you're ready to go home and you are exhausted by that get together. So number 2, what are some of the signs that we can look for? Well, number 1, you are relieved when plans get canceled. You're relieved when they can't meet up or they don't answer an email right away. And this surprises a lot of women, because I think it's more about feeling, I tell myself, well, I'm glad she canceled. I didn't want to go out anyway. You find yourself making excuses and making it about you not wanting to go, you being relieved. So if you feel more relieved than disappointed when those plans fall through, it's definitely worth noticing. And it doesn't mean you dislike the person. It's more of a feeling of indifference, or like I said, you turn it around and justify why it's positive. I didn't want to get dressed. I didn't want to have to do my hair. I'm so glad I'm staying home. I'm just going to watch Netflix. You also find that these connections with these people start to sap your energy. And so your body knows before your mind does. Another sign is you start editing yourself subconsciously. You are a little more careful in choosing your words, or maybe choosing topics. You don't want to start any trouble, or maybe you're not sure if you can talk to someone about something. And you're just starting to self-protect, right? You leave parts of yourself out of the conversation because it feels easier than explaining the details or having to answer a series of questions. So you keep it very surface. And sometimes it can even feel uncomfortable to the point that you're walking on eggshells. I know a lot of women have brought up politics and how they can't broach that with some of their longtime friends. Another sign is that you feel obliged. So it's more obligatory than it is natural to spend time with this person. You see their name pop up on your cell phone, instead of thinking, oh, great, I wonder what's up. You're like, oh no, what's wrong? And all these little shoulds start creeping into your thought process. You should call, you should text, you should say yes, you should show up. Healthy friendships can't survive on shoulds. They should be more about wants, looking forward to, can't wait. Another sign is when you do spend time with them, you leave those interactions feeling drained, or disconnected. I mentioned, if you watch my video in December, the last one in December about vampire friends, they're just exhausting. They wear you down. You find yourself getting in the car with a headache, or I can't wait to go lay down, or I can't wait to have silence. So pay attention to how you feel after an interaction with a friend who you feel like the relationship is expiring. So how we feel, what name we put to it, what we recognize is different for each one of us, because friendship is different to each one of us. And also that level of friendship, a friendly acquaintance, a good friend, a close colleague. And section 3, I would say, what does this not mean when you find this happening to you? So a friendship quietly expiring does not mean that the friendship was a mistake. You know, it doesn't mean anyone did anything bad or uncomfortable or unkind. It doesn't mean you're disloyal or they're disloyal to you. Honestly, some friendships become more habitual rather than intentional, and it can happen. It can be something you're feeling, but it also can be something they're feeling about you. You know, we all go along on that timeline, and we share meaningful experiences, and we're supportive of each other, and even go through life-changing experiences with each other. But that doesn't protect a friendship from coming to a natural. And you know, I spoke to a woman who lives in my community. She's a subscriber. She was telling me the story. She went through a very traumatic personal experience, and she met a group of women who, after this happened to her, she found support. They shared a very similar experience in their lives. And over the course of 2 years, they got to know each other. They branched out and did things together, lunch, had a little book group. But after about 2.5 years, she decided that she needed to start moving on, to kind of rebuild her life, to get back in a more positive place. And these ladies totally pushed back on her. She said they resented her wanting to do new things and try new things. And she invited them to do different things with her. And they started inviting her out at the last minute or forgetting about her. She would see the pictures on social media. But she still went through this tremendous guilt and even anger. She felt betrayed by them, but they were her friends because of a shared grief. They weren't ready to move away from that central reason for their friendship. And she wanted to take these people that she met over here and move them into an expanded life over there. And what she realized was the friendships expired. There was no longer that key thing holding them together that was central to their relationship, central to all of their conversations. They needed her to be a friend for one reason: to share the grief that they had all experienced. And it doesn't make anyone right or anyone wrong. They just came to the expiration date. So finally, why does this happen or seem to happen to us more after 50, or are we just now talking about it? Why does this seem to happen more often in our midlife friendships? Well, if you think about women in general, you know, we're the peacekeepers, right? Maybe we've been the reliable one. Maybe we've overlooked a lot, stayed longer than we should. But now we're getting older. And as we age, we all know that things start to shift. Our tolerance for emotional stress, for confusion, goes down. Quite honestly, I'm just not putting up with the BS anymore. We desire more authenticity as we get older. And as our physical level of energy starts to go down, Our ability to juggle too many things, too much stress goes down. So when a friendship no longer aligns with who we are now, we feel it. We don't just feel it mentally, we feel it physically. And we're putting a lot more stock into how we feel physically. So what do you do instead? What are you allowed to do? Well, you get to move on, right? You don't need a dramatic ending. You don't need to go through some kind of a confrontation. If the friendship warrants a big discussion, fine, but you don't need permission, because sometimes this doing friendship differently means just letting things soften, loosen up, move away. A little less effort, less explanation, less forcing, less feeling blah. And more honesty first and foremost with yourself. If you're just not feeling it, you're just not feeling it. So if you're watching this right now and someone comes to mind, a relationship in your life comes to mind, I'd love to know what you're feeling. What about that friendship is in the back of your head? We all define friendship differently, so only you can decide what you can and cannot tolerate. And yeah, sometimes we put up with things. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes it's a family member, and you know what? It is what it is. But naming it gives it clarity, right? I've shared, I wrote a book, Where the Mean Girls Go, because of a very negative friendship that I got myself involved with. And stepping back years later, I can see what I put up with, what I tolerated, what I overlooked. And I don't know that I was a great friend, because instead of letting the friendship expire, which is what I should have done, let it slowly melt away, I just kept at it and kept at it and kept making excuses and kept overlooking things. And I was sending all the wrong signals. So how was the other person even supposed to know what they were doing? I should have just let it go. But I didn't have that clarity until years later, looking back, looking at my part of the relationship and looking and questioning why I ever got involved with someone like that in the first place, because they haven't changed, not at all. What I finally discovered after many years is that clarity, self-reflection, is an act of self-respect. You look at all the facts, you make the best decision you can at the time, and you give yourself permission to move on. Now, this whole year, we're going to be talking about doing friendship differently, because I'll be honest with you, when friendships end, sometimes we get depressed and we feel uncomfortable. Now, in our next video, we're going to talk about the part most women struggle with after they come to this realization that a friendship has expired. Many women go through guilt, second guessing, the fear of being alone, that somehow choosing yourself makes you selfish, unkind, unlikable. Maybe there aren't other women out there that you can become friends with, so you're going to be alone. If that's something you wrestle with, I think you'll really enjoy this series. But before we end, I'd like to leave you with a question, and I really look forward to your comments. I answer every single solitary comment, and we've got some great members of our community that always jump in. So if you are in one of these friendships, or you're starting to sense it, was there a first sign that really got your attention, that told you that the friendship had changed? Now, you don't have to share the whole story if you don't want to, but sometimes just naming, this is what's going on, this friendship has become a habit, not an enjoyment. Sometimes that's enough. This is a very thoughtful community, and if you're navigating this quietly, know that you're not alone. There are a lot of women on here who are very, very wise. And let's face it, we've got a lot of years of wisdom between all of us. So this year, we're doing friendship differently. We're doing it with honesty. We're doing it with compassion. We're taking care of ourselves, but we're also being kind to our friend, because friendships end for all kinds of reasons. Women, young women especially, young girls, we've just been taught for so many years that everything has to end for a reason. Someone did something, someone said something, someone lied, someone betrayed. And as a result, we build these endings up in our mind so that when a friendship needs to end, it's really hard to pull the trigger, because you don't want to feel that depression. You don't want to feel anger. You don't want to feel like you've let yourself down. You don't want to worry about being alone. Well, have a great week. I look forward to seeing you next week as we continue to live this year doing friendship differently. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.